We're in 1 Samuel 16 and 17 today. We're preaching roughly 75 verses today. So enjoy, sit back, relax. Hope the pews are comfortable for you out there today. It's a familiar story about David and Goliath mostly, so it's something that most of you have heard before, and we'll be summarizing portions of it. Anytime I skip Bible verses and when I'm preaching through things, I just want to encourage you, go back through, read it, so you get the full sense beyond just the Higginbotham summary of that. But what this passage is teaching us largely is that you are not here on accident today. That God did not bring you to this place, to this spot, to this moment in your life, or for any spot in your life by accident. The Lord has ordered your steps to get you to be exactly where you are at this point. And you may have made a lot of missteps along the way, but God has been ordering them to get you to where He desires you to be. So if you're here today and you think, I don't know why I'm here today, maybe it's to hear this message. Maybe the whole purpose of the way this morning went, the way last night went, was so you could sit and hear this message. Maybe it was to hear from the Gideons and to know, like, hey, this is a ministry I need to be involved in. Well, you are not here by accident. God has brought you here on purpose. We see that throughout this story. We're in chapter 16 of 1 Samuel. We'll start in verse 14, and I'll read the first few verses there. It says, "Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from the Lord tormented him. And Saul's servant said to him, 'Behold, now a harmful spirit from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord now command your servants who are before you to seek out a man who is skillful in playing the lyre. And when the harmful spirit from God is upon you, he will play it, and you will be well.' So Saul said to his servants, 'Provide for me a man who can play well, and bring him to me.' One of the young men answered, 'Behold, I've seen a son of Jesse of the Bethlehemite, who is skillful in playing, a man of valor, a man of war, prudent in speech, and a man of good presence, and the Lord is with him.'" And so what we have here is Saul has broken trust with the Lord. We saw that when he refused to annihilate the Amalekites and sacrifice their cities and people fully to destruction. He preserved the best of their goods. He preserved their king Agag. And God sent Samuel to let Saul know that the kingdom has been removed from him. And then God sent Samuel on a mission to go find who the next king would be. And this boy, David, the eighth of 8 children, of 8 sons of Jesse, was anointed in the presence of his brothers to be the next king of Israel. And now the Spirit of the Lord has departed from Saul, as we see here in the passage today, and Saul is being tormented by a harmful spirit. Saul is struggling with all sorts of things, and his servants recognize Saul needs something to calm him down. And so they say, there's a man, there's a kid, there's a guy out in Bethlehem. He can play the lyre. We can bring him to you. And Saul says, "Go, bring him to me." And David comes in to Saul's presence, and he gains favor with Saul, so much so that Saul makes him his armor bearer. Saul makes him his close confidant. And when David is in the presence of Saul, Saul is doing well. Now God is arranging the pieces on the board to prepare David for what is going to be his long-term role as king of Israel. Right? David is anointed king. He knows he's going to be the king. He's the rightful king. Saul is the current king. And God is putting David, like arranging David's life to place him with Saul, in the presence of Saul, close in proximity to Saul, to see how decisions are made, to see how a kingdom can be run, so that David can take what will be his. And the point of this first section here, guys, is that God will position you in positions to prepare you for a future that's coming. God puts us in positions to prepare us for what is next. Everything that David had gone through his life, and you'll see this in the fight with Goliath as well, every single thing that David has experienced in his life out in the field, as a shepherd, as a boy learning to play the lyre, as a young man who's just been picked up and brought into Saul's palace, right? Every one of those steps is to prepare him for his ultimate purpose, for what it is that he is designed and specifically called out to do. God does that in our midst as well. God has not put you in the various positions, given you the various life experiences that you've had so that they can be wasted for his kingdom. Everything that you've experienced, y'all have done things and seen things and experienced things that I will never know or understand. Right? I am not you, but God has made you specifically the way he has. He has let you walk down the path that you've walked down to prepare you for the next thing in his plan for you, if your eyes are open to see that plan. So after that, there's a battle that's going to take place. The Philistines have gathered up their troops, and they're going to go to war against the nation of Israel. The Philistines are the bad guys in the story, and they're not just bad guys. They've got a bad guy in the midst of their bad guys. 17, verse 3 and 4 says this, "And the Philistines stood on the mountain on one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side with a valley between them. And there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span." A cubit is 1.5 feet, so this is like 9.5 feet. This is a tall drink of water. This is an unnaturally big guy. You'll read earlier in the Bible, it says, in those days there were giants in those parts. Goliath was one of these giants. He was the Philistines' champion, and he had all the armor to go along with it. He had a massive javelin that a normal man would not be able to fling. He was a big, strong warrior man. Jump down to verse 8. "And Goliath stood, and he shouted to the ranks of Israel, 'Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. And if he's able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, you shall be our servants and serve us.'" What Goliath proposed was a reasonable solution to armed conflict. Right? The battle could go on, hundreds of people could die in battle, or you send your best out. I'm clearly the best of my guys, and we're going to do what is known as representative warfare. You send out your champion, we'll send out our champion, and whoever wins the battle, and whoever loses will serve the victorious nation. And so Goliath feels pretty confident about that, being a 9-foot-tall warrior. He should feel confident. He's looking across the battle line at Israel, and he can't imagine anyone coming out of there. I mean, Saul is represented as being a head taller, right, taller from his shoulders upward than anyone else. But Saul himself would be no match for Goliath. Goliath knew that. And so Goliath said, let's just make this easy. We don't need to have a lot of loss of life today. Just one of you come out. And we get a summary here that every time he came out, the people were dismayed at his words, because nobody wants to go and punch the bully in the mouth. He's a big, scary dude who will kill you as soon as he breathes on you. And so Israel dismayed at this, and we have some of David's brothers who were in and among the warriors of that time. And at this time, while David was an armor bearer for Saul, he would sometimes be in the presence of Saul, but sometimes he would be back home caring for his father's sheep, being the youngest of those. And for 40 days, verse 16 tells us, this Philistine came forward and took his stand morning and evening. Every morning he would come out, tell them that they're dogs who don't need to fight. Come fight me. And every evening he would come out and say, I guess you guys didn't feel like fighting today. We'll try again tomorrow. And for 40 days this went on. He was ridiculing the God of Israel. He was mocking the nation of Israel, claiming victory over them by their cowardice. If you're here in this life and you're walking through this life, you know God is ordering your steps to put you, He's preparing you for the next thing. I want you to know that if you're walking in the path that God has to fulfill God's purposes, God always has enemies. On this side of eternity, until Jesus Christ comes and stomps and crushes fully and completely the power of hell, there are enemies of God in our midst. And those enemies of God are active in trying to dissuade us from following what God has already prepared you to do. Right? It could be kind of things, words that are being said around you to breed fear and anxiety inside of you. It could be that you think the culture around you will not accept the call that you have by the Lord. But there are enemies of God, and there always have been. All right, we're not in some new age where this is all brand new. God is well versed in the enemies around him. The question is, are you going to be willing to face the enemies of God, or will you day after day after day hear them mock and deride your God and go back cowering to your bed at night only to wake up and do it again and again and again? There are always enemies of God. David's back home with his father, and Jesse says, hey, go take some meats and cheeses and some breads to the commander of the army and make sure your brothers are doing okay. So David, being the obedient child, gets up early in the morning, goes out to the battle lines, delivers the goods that his father had sent him with to try to earn favor for his brothers among the commanders of the army. And while he's there, he begins to hear this man come out, this Goliath of Gath. And he hears Goliath spiel, deriding the name of the Lord God, telling Israel that they have no one who's willing to fight, mocking the nation of Israel. This would be, I guess, day 41 of the challenge. And he hears what's being said, and David looks around at all of these men who are, taller than him and older than him and more equipped to take care of this problem in front of him, and none of them want to do it. They're quaking in fear. They're dismayed at the presence of Goliath. And David says, well, why isn't anyone going out there? And they begin to tell David all the good things that will happen for the person who goes to fight the battle. If someone goes and if someone beats Goliath, he'll be given the king's daughter, and he'll be given a position inside of the king's government, and his family will live tax-free the rest of their lives. That sounds pretty good. Tax-free living right now sounds like pretty good. I was driving years ago now through Kansas. I don't know. I guess I was going to Wisconsin maybe. And I was driving through Kansas, out in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. And they had like those big highway signs. And basically they were begging people to come live in Kansas. It was like tax-free for life, like in Kansas at this time. I'm not sure if that's still going, but with the way property taxes are going, some of us may be Kansans real soon. But I thought, man, tax-free living. And so these are the promises that are given to the man who will kill Goliath. And David hears these things. And so in verse 26, David said to the men who stood by him, what will be done to the one who kills the Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel for who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people told him the same things that they had already told him. And they said, so shall it be done to the man who kills him. And now Eliab, his eldest brother, David's eldest brother, heard when David spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, why have you come down? And with whom have you left the few sheep in the wilderness? I know your presumption and the evil of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. And David said, what have I done now? Was it not but a word? And he turned away from him into another and spoke in the same way. And the people answered him just as before. And when the words that David spoke were heard, they were repeated before Saul. And he sent for him, and David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, you are not able to go against this Philistine, for you are but a youth, and he has been a man of war from his youth. So David is down there, he's delivering the goods, he's hearing the story, he has righteous indignation inside of him. He says, why isn't anyone taking care of this Philistine? Why is no one removing the reproach from Israel? What are y'all doing? And his oldest brother looks at him, as older brothers can sometimes, and does not see inside of David what God sees inside of David. He actually sees the exact opposite. David is described as a man after God's own heart. Eliab says, I know the evil in your heart. And Eliab says, you should not be here. You've just come out to watch the war. You have no business being here. You go back home to those few little sheep that you have. You can't do anything here. You're not needed here. Leave it to the big boys. Please, David. Please. But David is undeterred. He asks someone else. He says, is this true that Saul will reward the person in this way? They answer him, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. Saul hears word that there's someone in the camp who's finally gathered enough courage to maybe go to war, and he says, bring that man to me. And David comes walking in, and he recognizes David, I'm sure, as the boy man who plays the lyre in his palace, and he's like, yeah, buddy, it's cute that you want to do that. Like, it's admirable that you want to do that, but you're not it. Like, you're a young guy. This guy has been killing people, like, for longer than you've been alive. You do not want to go to war against this guy. You don't have what it takes, David. Please, just stay here. And then David kind of gives his defense for that. He's like, look, when there was a lion that was going against the sheep, I grabbed it by the beard and I killed it, which is, that's pretty tough, let's be honest, right? To grab the mane of a lion and then slay the lion up close. We're not talking about throwing a spear at it, but up close, personal combat. He said, I've done it to a bear as well, and what I've done to the lion and what I've done to the bear, I'll do to that Philistine as well. And Saul's like, impressive. But what we see here is there are people, good-intentioned people. Eliab is a good-intentioned person. Saul, in this case, is good-intentioned as well. Good people who should know better, people who are further down the road than you, people who've seen a little bit more life. And sometimes those good people doubt the power of God and the presence of God and the call of God in your life. Sometimes good people who are in your life, they can doubt the power of God. And so they just don't see that God can work through you, the thing that you feel that God is able to do. Years ago, when I surrendered to the ministry, I was 18 years old when I said, okay, Lord, I'll do this thing. And I went to school, and when you're going into school, you want a major that has wide appeal. I try to tell my kids this when they come back, and they're like, I'm majoring in. I'm like, how about something just a little bit wider appeal? I'm sure, being an expert in acting has some appeal, but if you don't get an acting job, you're really going to struggle out in the world. So what about business or something like that, right? Like real generic sort of degrees as counsel. And my father, I went to Houston Baptist University, now Houston Christian University, and I went to Houston Baptist, and we had to double major. And I majored in Christianity and psychology, which are two degrees that if you're not doing exactly what I'm doing now, are pretty much worthless. Because like a psychology degree, you have to get a master's degree to do anything with it at all. And the Christianity degree, I don't know if you know this, it's not particularly helpful that I can list the judges in order for any career outside of this, right? No one is like, oh, that's really impressive. I like that. Can you go through the 12 tribes of Israel now too? Very nice. Yes, we'd love for you to, work in our company. It doesn't help you in the interview process. And my dad looked at the majors that I had declared, and he pulled me aside, and my dad loves the Lord, right? And he is not doubting the fact that I was called to ministry. But he said, Matt, have you thought about getting one degree that might hold you through if this ministry thing doesn't always work the way you want it to? And I said, no, Dad, man, God has called me to do this, so I'm just going to follow, and I'm going to do this. And the reason I chose psychology, by the way, is because half of y'all are about 80% crazy, and the other half of y'all are about 90%. And so I just want to understand some of what's going on inside of the head, right? By the time I was done with my psychology degree, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad to be done with this nonsense. But there's stuff in there that I learned that was helpful. And so I was just convinced these are the degrees I need to take. And my dad said, but neither of those are worth anything, son. And you're going to spend 4 years, and you're not going to have any degrees. And then he said these words. He said, and Matt, I know a lot of unemployed pastors. And he was looking out for his son. Absolutely. He said he was looking into the future. He said, like, I know a lot of guys who think they're supposed to be in ministry, and they don't have a church anywhere, and they don't have a job anywhere, and they don't have an education that's worth anything, and they're struggling. Like, please reconsider. And I looked at my dad with the arrogance of an 18-year-old. And my dad was in the software industry in Houston, Texas. And I said, Dad, I bet you know a lot more unemployed software people, though. Like, if God has called me to do, I'm going to do. And praise God, by the way, I've been in ministry now since 18, and I've been unemployed for, 4 weeks, something like that. Not looking to get unemployed now, so please, no business meetings. But like, I said, I bet you know a lot more unemployed software guys, don't you, Dad? There's always unemployed people. There's always going to be people who may doubt what God is calling you to do. I may doubt what God is calling you to do. As your pastor, I may put obstacles in front of you. I pray that I don't. But say, I don't know if you can do this, and I don't know if you're qualified to do that. But like, if God has called you, and God has equipped you, and God has positioned you through your life to be in a spot, like, you better obey God than man. Right? Just like the disciples when they were arrested, and they say, don't preach anymore about Jesus Christ. They said, you choose whether it's right to obey God or man, but as for us, I can't help but speaking about what I've seen and experienced. Right? If God's called you, let no one stand in your way. He has prepared you for that. So what happens in the battle? Most of you know the story. David goes down to meet Goliath in battle. He wears no armor because Saul's armor was too much for him, and Goliath responds to David at his side in verse 43, and he says, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? Just a little nothing. And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the beasts of the field. That's an intimidating line, by the way. I'm going to rip you up to the point that all the animals around here are going to have dinner on you. And David said to the Philistine, you come at me with sword and spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down, and I will cut off your head, and I will give the dead bodies of the host of Philistines this day to the birds of the air, to the wild beasts of the earth, that all of the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord saves not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. I love it. God's like, I'm going to rip you up. I'm going to feed you to the birds. And David's like, that's really cool. Because, like, I'm not that big of a deal, but you're fighting against the Lord of the army of hosts, and he's going to deliver you into my hand. I'm going to cut your head off, which he does. I'm going to cut your head off, and the birds are going to eat you. And then all your friends behind you that you think I'm just killing you, we're going to kill all of them too. And we're going to take them, and the birds are going to be tired of eating after they're done with the Philistine feast that the Lord is preparing, because God is not mocked. He will give you into our hand. And David gets the stone, slings the stone, knocks the guy out. VeggieTales ends story there, but David runs up to Goliath, grabs Goliath's sword, massive sword, chops off Goliath's head, holds it up to the army of Israel, and Israel comes out and destroys the Philistines. By the way, there's a picture. Someone drew that picture of David holding the decapitated head of Goliath. I love that picture. It's the sort of stained glass window we could have right there. Just make a donation. I love the idea that, like, the enemies of God, those who come out against God, will face the wrath of God, and God always wins his battles. Right? That God always wins his battles. The Lord will always win his battles. David is not the key actor here. The story of David and Goliath is not that you can win the battles that God places in your life. If you work hard, you can overcome your speech impediment. You can overcome your difficult background. You can overcome your trauma of your past, because the Goliaths in your life can be slain by you. Know, the story of David and Goliath is about a God who will not allow himself to be mocked, and he will use anything that he chooses to execute his judgment, because God wins his battles. The Lord always wins his battles, and God uses us oftentimes in the victory for the battles. And so we get to share in the glory of God's victorious battle. God not just puts us where he wants us to be for what's going to be next. God positions us very specifically for his purposes. Right? Like I said, you are not here today by accident. God has positioned you in this spot for his purposes, and I don't know what that is. But if there's an enemy of God that God has identified inside of you, something that there is a burning passion inside of you, and you say, this cannot be, and God has put the fire in your belly, then you go and you follow where the Lord has led you and watch the Lord win victory through those things. Nothing is by accident. The idea of providence, that God is guiding us through human history, that God is carrying us through human history towards his righteous end, is very, very true. And in fact, you may be here today providentially by the grace of God to hear this sermon and to hear this story right here, that God will win his battles. And the great battle, like the story of David and Goliath, is a wonderful Easter story, by the way. I think I preached David and Goliath on Easter one Sunday. It's years ago now. Right? Because Satan has a Goliath. He has a representative to fight in warfare, and that representative is death. And if you go around and you go to cemetery after cemetery after cemetery, you will see that Satan's champion, death, is virtually undefeated. Many people have done battle with Satan's champion, death, and have come back not at all, buried in the ground. But when Christ fought Satan's champion, he fought as representative warfare. He fought for the entirety of humanity. And when Satan's champion was conquered, when Christ was dead and buried, but on Easter Sunday when he raised up, defeating the power of the grave, oh death, where is your victory? Right? Where is the victory? It's gone because Christ won the battle. Guys, we have a God who has already won the battle, and the enemies of God have been at work all the time, and you're here today, and I want you to know that your death has already been paid for. You have already, the Christ has already died for you. You can walk in life and hope today. Guys, there's good news in the story of David and Goliath, not just that God will win battles in and among your midst, or that God may use you to do some specific things, but that God did use Jesus Christ to fight the victor, to fight the champion of Satan. And he has vanquished the power of death and hell. And we live today in hope. We're not in fear of the grave. One day I may get laid down in a piece of earth somewhere, and they may put a granite or marble or concrete marker above me, and it'll say my name, and it'll say 1982, the year I was born, till whatever year it is that I finally succumb in this mortal body. But that is not the end of my story. There will be a dash after my name, because my life is continuing through the victory of Jesus Christ. Guys, death has no power over us today. If you're here today and you're saying, I want to walk in hope today, I'm encouraging you, I'm begging you, I'm pleading you through the name of Jesus Christ, come and believe on Lord Jesus Christ today and be saved. Maybe you're here and you already know Jesus Christ, and you just need a little encouragement to know that where you are right now, the things you're walking through right now, God has foreseen these things, and they are for his purpose. And if there's something, a fight that you need to have, don't let naysayers come to you and say, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you don't know enough. If God has equipped you and he has positioned you and he has put passion in you, go and do. What a wonderful thing it is. We have a God who wins our battles. Let me pray.